This video is about the power of the fig tree. We've heard many wonderful sermons about the fig tree and how the master cursed it, and he showed us a lesson of how important it is to not only bear leaves but to produce fruit for those that come in need of the tree's assistance. But the leaves were important as well. They were very important. God did not curse the tree because the leaves were there, but because the leaves were put forth without the tree providing fruit. The leaves were not bad in themselves, it's just what they represented, what the tree misrepresented to those who needed the fruit the tree was supposed to bear. The fig tree is unusual. In many fruit trees you find the flower comes on the tree, then as the tree is pollinated, and we've all been through apple orchards or things where you see all these beautiful flowers, the trees are full bloom and you see all these wonderful flowers, and then from the flowers come the fruit. So the fig tree is unique in the sense that it produces the figs before the leaves. So what you would see if you went to Palestine somewhere and you saw fig trees from the pictures and things I looked at in doing research for this, you will find a little stem and it'll have these little bulbs on it. The bulbs are the actual figs. As the figs mature, the leaves grow on and the leaves are rolled up tight, and as the tree matures, the leaves begin to open up. So the leaves for the children of Israel during that time were the things that promoted their concept of religion. They were representing themselves as a people who were in the service of the God of heaven and who were supposed to be, maintaining a relationship through service for humanity. The leaves on the trees represent the falseness that they were presenting. And this was the message that Christ was trying to convey, that producing only leaves and no fruit is a misrepresentation of who you really are. The leaves are not a bad thing. The leaves are a part of that experience, but the leaves in this situation were showing something that was untrue. They were not living up to their mission. So we today, as children of God, do we have a lot of leaves on our tree that misrepresents who we are when there's actually no fruit, which is basically service? So we're going to talk about that a little bit in this presentation. So we're all supposed to be fruit markets. We were designed to be used by God to provide the wonders of help to those that God would bring to us. Whether we are a tomato or a watermelon or whatever God has ordained that our service should be and what type of fruit we are supposed to bear. We're not just supposed to be leaves. We're all supposed to be showing some type of fruit for the service of the King. We're all supposed to be providing the substance and the necessary things people need in this journey. As we are servants of the King, we're supposed to be providing resources for their survival. So I found this information a little bit about the fig trees, which I thought was very interesting. And when it says in the Bible how Christ came to the fig tree and he searched all over it, well, fig tree can be very large and it can be like a bush. So when Christ came to the fig tree, it was amazing because the fig tree is a unique tree. It works by nature's clock. The fruit has to be ripened on the tree for it to be edible, to be tasty, and it has no blossoms. The blossoms grow inside. Those are those little seeds that you eat that give the fig that unique texture and taste. And some fig trees, depending on the climate, can have two crops. You got the early summer or the one that buds later in the year, in the autumn, which is usually the chief one. But what I found interesting was that the leaves are enormous. They're bigger than your hand in most situations, as it says here. The leaves can be from 4.7 inches to 9.8 inches long. And some of the pictures I saw was just amazing. Some of those leaves were almost the size of a piece of paper. And they can be, maximum 7 to 8 inches across. So when Christ was going to the tree, that's why he had to go all through the leaves, because a fig tree's leaves actually are so enormous, and they hide the figs. And what's interesting, in fig trees can be so large that nothing grows underneath, because the foliage on the fig tree is so dense. So the flowers on the fig tree, as it says here, is actually the fruit. So you're actually eating the flowers of the tree, which is actually the fruit. So what are we? Are we shade trees or barren fig trees? Both give shade, but one has lost its purpose for existence. God created the great oaks and other big trees that provide shade and beauty and oxygen and help us to have a clean atmosphere to breathe. The fig tree is unique. It's a fruit tree. It is not a shade tree. But what had happened to the fig tree that Christ went to for substance and for health? He's headed to Jerusalem to face the whole situation with the plan of salvation. And he was hungry. He was coming from Bethany, and he was hungry. And he comes to this fig tree. And when a fig tree has an enormous amount of leaves, all the figs are there, and they are ripe at that time. So Christ was not looking for something that was unreasonable to be on the fig tree. The fig tree presented itself as bearing fruit to provide assistance to someone who needs it. And this is what Christ wants us to remember. Are we shade trees, or are we barren fig trees who have lost our purpose, who have become misguided in how we conduct ourselves in the cause of Christ? So what are we? Where we stand? And this is what we have to ask ourselves. How are we doing? When you go to Matthew 21:18, and it starts there, and it gives us the situation about the fig tree. And it reads, "Now in the morning as he returned into the city, he hungered." Talking about the Savior. "And when he saw a fig tree in the way, he came to it, and found nothing thereon but leaves only, and said unto it, Let no fruit grow on thee henceforth forever. And presently the fig tree withered away." Think about that. Now, when you get to the disciples, when they're coming back, and when the disciples saw it, they marveled, say how soon the fig tree withered away. This was something Christ did as an example for us and an example for the disciples, that being pretentious doesn't help mankind. We are not here to serve ourselves. So the fig tree, which was supposed to provide not only shade and comfort, but to provide substance to people who were in need of strength and who were in need of things that would help them to survive in this world. So we find something so interesting about the fig tree. And so I asked this question: what do we do? How do we live? As Jesus came to that fig tree, so he was expecting to be able to be satisfied with his hunger, which would provide him strength to carry on in his journey. And Jesus came to the fig tree and found no fruit to satisfy his hunger. Do we have just leaves? Prayer and ministry for others, we cannot do without the power from God. We must have more than leaves. He has given us the purpose for our ministry to provide the fruit to be shared through the power of God, for love for those who need our help. The key to be an effective tree is faith in God. It has to be unwavering faith in the power of God, so that your fruit is no longer just in your own mind, but a fruit that provides happiness and assistance for those who come to you for help. Doing everything right as far as it was concerned is what the fig tree was doing. It had beautiful leaves, but it wasn't helping anyone. The fruit for others, not for yourself. You cannot just take the blessings of God and just hold them to yourself. You're supposed to use those blessings to minister to mankind. And sooner or later, your fruit will begin to fall off the tree because it will begin to lose its purpose. Yet, we have to be mindful how we face this reality. We must be mindful that God means what he says. We are to be fruit-bearing trees. So does a person know when they go from being a fruit-bearing tree for the purpose of God, or when they lose that purpose, in that cease to understand that God has given us a purpose in his eyes, not us? So when do we know that we have gone from a fruit-bearing tree to just a shade tree? God plants, he waters, the sunshine, and the tree grows, and the leaves appear, and the fruit comes on, but it's God's plant. So what happened? Why did it lose its fruit? The fruit began to fall off. The children of Israel were set to be a great testimony for the world, to assist the world. So this power was supposed to be effective in transforming not only their lives by being a channel of life to those around them, but they were supposed to pray and ask God for consistent relationships so that they can maintain what God had given them. You must be able to pray and know that God will remove the mountains even though it is still there. And that's what we must do as we minister to those. Sometimes it can be hard, but the purpose God has given us, we must maintain our relationship to continue to be a fruit-bearing tree as opposed to just a shade tree. So, this for me was very interesting as I was researching this and thinking about what God asked. And I thought about this and said, do you think the Jewish leaders of Jesus' day noticed that they were turning into a shade tree, not a fruit tree? As the fruit began to fall, what was their response? What would be ours? Would we even notice that things are changing? Where would we go when we began to see these things? So what were some of the character changes that took place? What would be some of the character changes that would take place in our lives as we begin to lose our way? So this part I'm going to go through kind of quickly here. These are scriptures found in Matthew. And these are the chapters here on the screen. And what it is I picked out some that just speak to some of the attributes the Pharisees had taken on during the time of Christ, as they had gone from being a productive fruit tree on the crossroads of humanity to provide the gospel message to them. They had become a shade tree to themselves. They had lost their mission and they didn't even realize it. And when Christ pointed these things out, they became hateful and mean. The word of God called them vipers. This is what Christ called them. They had disdain for the poor, publicans, and sinners, people they were supposed to minister to. They called Jesus the prince of devils. It's deep. They violated the Sabbath for their traditions. They had lost their reality. They seek to destroy Jesus, the Son of the living God, the Messiah they longed to see, and because he was not fitting up to what they wanted to kill him. He called them a wicked and adulterous generation, always asking for a sign that they would not even believe in because they would not accept the king. They made the house of God a den of thieves when he drove out the money changers and the sellers and the buyers. They had created this situation to make money in the temple of God, and they were cheating people. So what was some more? They were always going around trying to entangle Jesus in his talk that they might condemn him. They were always plotting, and then they wanted to challenge Jesus' authority, and then bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne, and they would not lift one of them with their finger. What they would do was they had all these traditions on things you had to do, like on the Sabbath. You could only walk so far. You couldn't even carry a handkerchief on the Sabbath according to their traditions. You had to pin it to you or something. So there were so many rules, as we see that Christ was always combating these rules when it came to healing. They wanted to be seen of men. They loved the uppermost seat and rooms at various feasts. And, they wanted to be head of the synagogue. They wanted the men around them to call them rabbi. This is what the common people did. This is what they were longing for. So they had all these leaves, but everything was contrary to the mission God had given them. So to me, the fig tree, the leaves speak to who we are. The fruit tree has leaves, but the leaves reflect where you are. They would not allow people to come to Christ. It says to shut up the kingdom of heaven against men. Devour women's houses. They would take stuff from widows and orphans. They made it hard. And then a proselyte or someone who wanted to convert to Judaism, by the time they got through with him, he was more of a child of hell than themselves. And this is what the master said. And said for a pretense, they would make long prayers, stand up there and just in the marketplace. That was their tradition. At certain times during the day when it was time to pray, when they would be out, they would stop and start praying really loud. They were like blind guys. They would say that the gold on the temple would sanctify what they were doing, like on the altar. The altar would sanctify the offering. And Christ told them, you blind because you swear by the gold of the temple and he is a debtor. But the temple was made holy by the presence of God, not the gold of the temple. And said, swear by the gift that is upon it, he is guilty, talking about the altar. So it was not about God to them. Their leaves had no fruit on the tree. It was just leaves of pretense and falsehood and anger and vengeance towards those around them. They had no love for the suffering. So we see leaves play a real important part. What did Christ say about, the person by their fruit? This to me is what this parable is about. Those leaves have a testimony. So when they were talking about tithing, mint and annas, but the Lord said you omit the weightier matters of the law. Justice, mercy and faith, all these things they felt no need. They had an outward appearance of righteousness unto men. They were clean on the outside, but inside they were like dead man's bones, extortions and excesses, and he told them what they were going to do prophetically. Christ told them, when I'm gone, I'm going to send you prophets and people to testify to you about me, and you're going to kill them and crucify some of them. So that, they really wanted to kill the master, so they plotted and all kind of crooked stuff that they might take Jesus by subtlety and kill him, because they knew they could not do it in front of the people, because the people respected Jesus. The common man, as the word of God said, heard him gladly. These leaves have some deep testimony. And when it was at the trial, the religious leaders, the priests, when you read those chapters in Matthew, you will find that they were the ones who promoted the people and prompted the people to ask for Barabbas and to destroy Jesus. It's just tragic. The chief priests, mocking the Savior on the cross, talking about he said, I am the Son of God. How true they were. What have we become? Are we fruit trees or are we shade trees? What kind of leaves do we have on our tree? Because we are a combination of leaves and fruit. Fruit trees have leaves, but shade trees have leaves and no fruit. Do we have the latest high-tech gadgets? Have we filled our leaves with things we can see and process that do not advance our spiritual growth? Do we have like the latest smart house? You can control it with the touch of a button. What are other little tricks we have? Perfect balance of time and money, so we think. That we keeping it all together. But there's no God in us. We go to church, we have all these great leaves, and we think we have it all together. But what do those leaves represent? What are they covering? They're covering an empty tree with no fruit on it at all. It's just something there. And that is the tragedy of all that God has done for us. And we're back to Matthew 21:21. Jesus answered and said unto them, when they asked about the tree withering away so quickly, the Lord did not explain to them the science He just told him, verily I say unto you, if you have faith and doubt not, you shall not only do that which is done to the fig tree, but also if you shall say unto this mountain, be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, it shall be done. And all things whatsoever you shall ask in prayer and believing, you shall receive. So it turns into faith. And this is what the master was saying. The leaves not only should reflect what's under them, but the leaves reflect what the tree is all about, along with the fruit that is on it. So the children of Israel's leaves, as well as their fruit, were tragic. And they didn't start out like that. That's the scary part to me. We go into church and we're going through all the mechanics, but we're not living a life. We have beautiful leaves, we have wonderful tree, but there's no fruit to the power of God to transform people's lives, to fulfill the mission the Master has given us. We're supposed to be fruit bearers, fruit for body and soul, to be delivered by His servants, not the world. We are supposed to have the spirit of our Master, who His fruit was giving to the people, the wonder of His love and His mercy, healing their bodies and healing their spirits. That's the mission He has given us to do. Now, I have taken, this is one of my favorite chapters in the Bible, Psalms 37. And, as we read the experience of the fig tree, when asked the disciples, when they asked the Master, when the disciples asked the Master, He didn't just explain how the fig tree died, as I said a minute ago. Jesus pointed them to the power of faith. He told them what they could do if faithful. He was showing them the contrast in being faithful and pretending to have fruit by outward display. God reads the heart of man. His actions without faith would lead to a form of godlessness without the power. We will look good to the outside world, but to those who do great things for God, but God said He never knew them. And that's deep. There are going to be people who are going to claim they did great things for the Master, and He's going to say, I never knew you. The Pharisees prided themselves on what they knew. And when you read Psalms 37, it says, fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity. I thought that was deep in the context that I just, you look at the word fret, and to me, it was, I really didn't take that word real serious until just I was doing the research for this video. And I began to understand the fretting part is more than just twisting your hands or anything like that. That fretting part is deep. So I looked it up in the Strongs, and this is what I came up with. It says, kindly worth, hot, angry. Kindled worth. I'm sorry. Kindled wrath. Read, Sherry. Kindled wrath, hot, angry, displeased, fret, incensed, burn, earnestly, grieved, very. So when you connect that stuff, and then the next one, this is the root where this word right here comes from. This next one down here at the bottom, this 2787, this is the root of this word 2734, and it said burn, dried, angry, kindle. So you kindle wrath, you hot in anger, you displeased. You ain't just twisting your feet. You done went crazy. And this is something when I used to work with folks, the first thing I would tell them that I would be trying to help them in their journey as they were coming into the church, things that I had learned. You have to learn your triggers. That was my favorite thing when working with people who overcome addictions. I say you got to learn the triggers that make you act the way you do. And I learned early that before I get really just crazy angry, when I was coming into church, I noticed that my neck and my face would get hot. I noticed how you would have a physical manifestation before you did what you was going to do. And I began to detect that feeling when I would be going off a cliff. In my early days, that was something I didn't even realize was happening. Excuse me. It took God to reveal that to me as I got into that word, as I began to read about your behavior and what you're supposed to do. I had to learn to control myself Even though I was crazy at the time, I had to learn how to pray. I had to learn how to beat that heat down, to pursue the things of God, to have fruit on my tree, just not leaves. Because that anger was dangerous. And we love to quote these scriptures. The way I put this together is I grouped them. If you will look at the screen, I grouped the first one. It says, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither as the green herb. These are the scriptures that God promised the wicked is going to be. And then these over here are continuing. This is promise for not being like the wicked. And check this one out. It says, we quote this all the time. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thine heart. This is in Psalms 37, where it tells you not to get heated, not to get angry, not to become insane about evil. That scripture is there, that God will give you the desires of your heart to be able to overcome these things. And I like this one over here, where it says 37:6, and he shall bring forth thy righteousness as the light, and thy judgment as the noonday. And in verse 8 says, cease from anger and forsake wrath. Fret not thyself. There's that word again. Fret not thyself in any wise to do evil. Because once you become an evildoer, you fall under the just rebuke of God. So you have no fruit. Your service to God is a joke. All you are is leaves, and you feeling really good about who you are and what you do for him, but it has nothing that God will accept. Now, this one is one we know too. I have been young and now I'm old, yet I have not seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. This is so powerful. This is something we quote all the time, but it's in that same chapter that talks about the response to evil. That talks about the importance of living a godly life, not just in leaves, but with fruit under those leaves. Verse over here on your right side, it says in Psalm 37:29, the righteous shall inherit the land and dwell therein forever. The mouth of the righteous speaketh wisdom, and his tongue talketh of judgment. All of these are promises for not being like the wicked. These are the things God is telling us. If you don't do the wickedness, if you don't allow just leaves on your tree, these are the things you will become, and things that God will do for you. So here's some ones we don't like to think about. Because wickedness prospers. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not thyself. There's that word again. Don't get hot. Don't get angry. Don't go berserk. Don't do any of that stuff. Because literally my neck and face would get hot. And I didn't realize it. Because that was that evil spirit, that darkness in me that I had fed all my life until I was in my 20s before I first read the Bible. So I didn't even know that this was part of who I was. And what it said down here in 37:12, the wicked plotteth against the just and gnasheth upon him with his teeth. So we're going to get chewed up by the devil. That's just a reality. A little that a righteous man hath is better than the riches of many wicked. Psalm 37:16. That was one I used to love to think about. So unless there's a difference between us and the tree with just leaves and a tree with leaves and fruit. So as we face the wickedness in our service, we have to realize that stuff is here, and it's only through God's power that we will not succumb to that behavior. And it goes on here, it talks about the wicked, the wicked waiteth the righteous and seeketh to slay him. And I'm sorry, not waiteth, but watcheth. Watcheth the righteous and seeketh to slay him. Wait on the Lord and keep his way, and he shall exalt thee to inherit the land. When the wicked are cut off, thou shalt see it. He cannot be found. These particular scriptures are the parallel, the right, and what will happen to the wicked, to encourage us that darkness is real, and it do prosper, and it can hurt you. But you must have your trust in the King to carry on. 37:35, I have seen the wicked in great power, and spreading himself like a green bay tree. That's a big tree. So we see here the wicked too is great. Yeah, but God says I got a solution for all of that. Verse 39 says, but the salvation of the righteous is of the Lord. He is their strength in the time of trouble. And the Lord shall help them and deliver them. He shall deliver them from the wicked and save them because they trust in him. So we see that God has a plan. Are you a tree with just leaves, or does your tree have leaves and fruit? Has your fruit fallen off your tree? You know, John 15:5 says, I am the vine, you are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For without me you can do nothing. When we forget this, we become like the religious people who crucified Jesus. We create a religious experience that doesn't reveal our lack of God in our lives. So, God knows the deeds of the evil. He will get all the glory as he deals with it. Thus, we don't lose our souls by using tactics of the evil to overcome the mountains that face us. Our fig tree brings life to the perishing as God designed. You know, we have to realize God designed us to be fruit bearing, to be providing a way out. It's just like the children of Israel at the Red Sea. The Lord opened the Red Sea for them. They didn't have to do anything but watch. But a little later on, as they were coming into Canaan, and they had to put their feet in the water when the Lord opened the Jordan. The Lord told the priest to go down there with the ark. And the Bible says in Joshua, when their feet touched the water, it opened up. So sometimes we have to get our feet wet. You know, this service thing is something that God has ordained that all of us must do. Ministry happens in the storms of life. Our faith is not just a happy feeling like the fig tree with just leaves. That's not it. The life must be one of relieving the hunger of a dying world. Jesus came to the tree for food. He sought physical relief from his hunger. We are to have the same experience. We are to be on the road where God puts us to provide food for physical and spiritual needs of those that God sends down the road. We are working with God for the salvation of mankind. So for us to be all leaves is an insult to God and a denial of our calling. God has given us all the talents we have for his service. If we use them solely for our own self, God has every right to take back what he has given. So we cannot forget. We must remember who we are. Where are we in the service of God? Are we full of just leaves, or have we leaves and fruit? They go together. The power of faith brings about a change in a person and enables him to serve his fellow man. This is the power that Jesus gave to his servants. We are here to serve. The fruit tree that's out there, whatever fruit you are, with only leaves, was not fulfilling its design purpose. God created it to be a service to man, not to itself. This is the probation paid for us from Calvary. It is this faith that gives the power to live a life of faith. Sounds like a little turnaround there. But a life is through God. And a life we have must be a life of faith. Not just a life of just leaves, but a life of leaves and fruit. So what do we have on that? The leaves. You think about, what are some of your leaves? You know, not just tithe paying, not just these things you think, but search in your heart to make sure that your fruit is still there. Because when you lose that connection, you don't realize that your fruit is gone and all you have is leaves. Let us come before God with faith to move mountains with the gift of his power committed to his service. Or we may find the curse of God, and he has removed all the spiritual gifts that he has given us. The Jews of Jesus' day withered before they lost their city that they prized so much. They had withered away. They had died because of their selfishness had separated them from God, the true source of life. We may find ourselves full of leaves. If there is no fruit, we are dying because the life-giving power of God has been removed. We will be of no use in this life and lose our souls in the process.